hopefully the quality makes up for the quantity. So I'm going to kick it off. I'm an electrical engineer out of Purdue University, got an MBA from Ball State. I've spent almost my whole career, 27 years, working for Navistar International. That truck down on the show floor, I could talk to you all day long about that truck because that was from our company. I know all about that kind of stuff. So ask me truck questions, but I'm trying really hard late in my career to become a utility person. And I've spoken at the last two Distributex, last two transmission and distribution worlds. I am trying very hard to learn to speak utility-ese so I can be comfortable not only A, talking to people in utilities and consultants and whatnot, but B, turn around back to the trucking organizations and help them understand what's going on in the utility side of the world. I chose today to talk about 10 real-world EV depot case studies. You read the bulletin that said 13, that refers to the 13 we did in 2021. So if you feel cheated that you're missing 3, I'll work with you. We got the 13 others to work from. We are the folks that do Run on Less demonstrations. Some of you may have seen things on LinkedIn in September, October. I'm going to walk you through what we were doing. We are a fuel agnostic nonprofit organization in the trucking industry. We don't care what fuel you use. We want to help you be more efficient and use it sustainably. So we do all kinds of things beyond what I'm talking about here today. We want you to be sustainable. The biggest challenge for trucking going forward is electrification. So that's what we're going to focus on. Every 2 years we do a demonstration for the truck industry to show what are the best in the industry capable of. And it started out with a challenge in 2017. We asked fleets, we want to monitor your best tractor, best trailer, and one of your best drivers. How good are they? How much above industry average? Just to do this for the first time. The cool part, in a situation where the average Class 8 tractor trailer gets about 6.5 miles per gallon at that time, these 7 individuals threw down 10.1 miles per gallon because the trucks were spec'd right, they were maintained right, and they were operated correctly. So they beat the national average by 50% because they did it right. Got a lot of popularity with our information and our demonstration. We did it again with regional haul tractors for big box stores and restaurants, whatnot, in 2019. 2021 for this group was where it starts getting interesting. Our board of directors said enough of that. Show them electric vehicles. What does an electrical truck look like? So for the first time, we went out and found 13 vehicles, different manufacturers, that would allow us to put telematics on the truck and monitor it. And in 2023, our board of directors set the bar even higher and said it's got to be 15 battery electric trucks on one lot. So I'm going to step back in time just briefly here. I've got information. It's on the back side of the card. I handed out to most of the people in the room. The bottom QR code will take you to all the information from 2021. So there are 13 fleet videos, data, telematics data from 13 different vehicles in the metrics section. And it was extremely popular with the world to find out what a battery electric truck really looked like and acted like on a charger and driving in real routes. So all of that's there, all of those interviews, all that data. Now for 2023, what I'm focusing on today, we just did this last September. We're still analyzing the data. There's a lot of information to go through. But we had 10 fleets, predominantly in California. When we were looking to do this, we were hoping again to get vehicles all across the country. Most states didn't even have 15 electric trucks yet at the time, so even if we moved them all to one parking lot, it still wouldn't have qualified. California, back in 2022, when we were organizing this, had something like 60% of the U.S.'s battery electric trucks inside of their borders. So we ended up with a lot of depots in California, but had Vancouver and had Manhattan area as well. All the vehicles that we monitored had telematics reporting back to us, and I'm going to walk you through all 10 of these depots just to give you a feel for what's happening in the real world here. All of this information down here on the left is at runonless.com. The cards I handed out will take you right there. So what is a Run on Less? It's a demonstration. It's not a contest. We do depot visits. We go out with a video crew and actually interview everybody on site. And we put up an electronic dashboard so the month, 3 weeks out of September, you can actually see day by day any of the trucks that we were monitoring and see the actual data from that particular truck. We do a lot of different industry events like this one. Our group is out presenting at least 100, 120 times per year, talking to different industry groups. We also do a boot camp that I'll show here in a bit to educate folks even further. We're out sharing information. All of this information is absolutely free to you and anyone else you want to send it to. These companies paid for us to do this demonstration. All the videos, all the reports, all the data, free, free, free. I don't know if you can find a better deal. You got a money-back guarantee from me. Let's start into the 10 locations. Starting on the East Coast, Frito-Lay in New York City, actually Queens, was challenged to convert their facility in 1 year. They had a ace in the hole here. This site happens to be owned by Prologis, and I don't know how many of you know the company name Prologis. I didn't before I got into this. They are the largest owner of distribution centers and warehouses across the country. As you're flying into an airport, looking down on all those big buildings with white roofs, there's a better than average chance that Prologis probably owns the building. They're huge. They have their own electrification team. They own so many buildings to help their firms that are leasing from them to change their facility for electrification. So that's a pretty significant situation. In the truck industry, we never used to ask anyone, do you own or do you rent your facility? Now it makes a huge difference. If you don't own it, your ability to upgrade it for electrification might be significantly hampered if the landlord's not interested. On this site, they were converting to all Ford E-Transit vans. They run potato chips, so these trucks run very light. They had Ford Pro charging systems, and they were supported by Con Edison. Some of what I'll talk about here is trucking gibberish. That's a diminishing load route, meaning they leave full of potato chips, and every stop they make, some more come out of the truck, so most likely it returns with nothing but empty plastic cartons in it at the end of the route. A little later, for those of you not familiar with Canada, this is a competitor to UPS, FedEx, etc., DHL. They are a parcel delivery company. It's kind of intriguing because FedEx has aligned themselves with BrightDrop, UPS has aligned themselves with Arrival, Amazon has aligned themselves with Rivian. Purolator has a different philosophy. We're going to go out and try a bunch of different models and figure out what works best for our particular business. And so they had, when we tested it, they had two on site, two models, a Motive Epic Class 6 step van, that's the one on the top, and a Ford E-Transit van on the bottom. They had other models that were coming in. Their particular challenge is these two trucks don't have the charging port anywhere near each other. If you've seen Ford Transits, their charging port's behind the logo on the grill. The step van has a charging port on the side. So their engineers worked in an overhead system that pivoted so they could charge a truck in the front or pivot it to the side and charge the truck on the side. So some really unique infrastructure types of things to make this work for them. Again, we're in a situation where it's a delivering load package delivery system supported by BC Hydro. I'm particularly excited by, I love asking trucking crowds this, I'll try this on this crowd. Of all the states and provinces in North America, how many of you think the best one is more than 20% green energy right now? There's nobody in here that thinks you can eat, none of the states or provinces are 20% green. Ooh.
What's your definition?
Thank you. The key to your answer is hydropower I consider to be clean. You agree?
Yeah.
It might not be renewable in everybody's book.
That's emission.
It's emissions free. Quebec and British Columbia, Quebec in particular is 99% green right now. Canada's only 9% coal and they're on their way to zero by 2030. So I've got a slide, I don't have it in here today, to talk about different states and provinces because it's not uncommon, given political polarization, for me to have somebody go, we shouldn't be driving electric vehicles, they're just running on coal. Folks, you need to figure out what's happening on the grid, because that's not a good answer anymore. I had a chance, I was the one that led the filming at UPS in Compton, California. Very intriguing for this reason. The package vehicles on top, you can tell there's a roof over them. They're against the loading line where they're putting the packages into vehicles. Their charging ports, again, another location. UPS has them mount the charging port. If you were standing on the ground, it's probably 6-7 foot in the air, but because they're backed up against a walkway to load the packages, they put the charging port there so they can just pull it down and plug it into the truck from the back side. Before they close the doors, pull out the plug, away they go. Their truck's outside, and that was an ugly story. No, they didn't intentionally put a charging system between a tree and a bush. They could not get the AHJs involved. I believe they had both city and county involved. They could not get their infrastructure installed before their Class 8 E-Cascadias arrived, so that charging system's sitting there temporarily. Their charging ports should be on the other side of that driveway and out in an open spot, but right now they have to stay out of the way of future construction. One of the things we learned, and you'll hear this in another one, utilities, AHJs, help speed things along, get your act together. By delaying installations, you're forcing companies that you think are going to be charging with smart charging at night. It's not there. They don't have it, so they're running these trucks and charging them during the day when they got more staff to shuttle trucks in and out of a charging station. So it gets real ugly when infrastructure's not in place like it's supposed to be. Penske in Ontario, California, one of the monster companies in the US that does a whole lot of vehicle leasing. They're all about interoperability. They've got different manufacturers, Ford, GM, Navistar, different models, Freightliners in there too. They've got different chargers. They're absolutely all about how much can I interchange these things and make them work for ourselves and for our customers. They actually have an 800 kilowatt hour battery on site, so they're taking that first step. Some of you heard me that I was sharing with an individual before we started this. We're already aware of the first fleet in Ohio that has full-on microgrid. They have a vertically spinning wind tower, they have solar, they have battery storage, and they have a full microgrid controller. They can island and remove themselves from the grid if they need to power their battery electric trucks. So not a lot of that in place yet, but it's starting to happen. Southern Cal Edison was this site. Watt EV is a fun one here for this reason. Watt EV is trying to be the electric truck stop of the future. The challenge is there aren't a whole lot of electric trucks out there right now to be served by an electric truck stop. So in the interim, they've realized they need to do other things, so they are now doing truck as a service or charging as a service to provide vehicles to those that want to use them without actually owning one. So you can, if you will, one payment gets you the truck, the fueling, and everything else. You just provide the driver. So it's an interesting situation. To me, it's interesting. US walked away from cabovers that most of the rest of the world runs. Back in the 80s, there was a saying amongst truck drivers, I don't want to be the first one to the scene of the accident. They'd rather have a hood. These are all cabovers. Nikola is a brand new company, one of the many new OEMs that is using an Iveco cab structure from Europe, and BYD is a Chinese company, and China runs all cabovers. So there's no hoods on these vehicles. The cab is over the top of what used to be the engine. They have either the ability to charge at 180 kilowatts or at 360 kilowatts, depending on how you connect it up. They have a charge management system from Amp Control. They are the first site that I know of that has the brand new MCS megawatt charging system on a truck. That is pretty phenomenal. I shocked an industry group at a conference like this a while back just to give you an idea what to think about in the future. How many of you have ever seen a company that's out there sealing the blacktop sometime during the summer or fall? Got a few people shaking their head yes. You can see all that wet black sealant going down. The next day they come in and paint the yellow lines. Imagine that happens at this trucking company. Sunday night, Bob comes in, puts the trucks back. Plugs in truck number 1, bam, 1 megawatt on the grid. Plugs in truck number 2, bam, 2 megawatts on the grid. You can see this happening. I don't think there's many utilities that are set to handle multiple megawatt loads being plugged in a matter of minutes. So it's just one of the things we need to be aware of in the future. Sure, there's a lot of things we can do with software and other things, but this is real world possibility in the very near future. They also have a 5 megawatt feed from Southern Cal Edison. Performance Team is a subset of Maersk. I'm sure most of you have seen, especially with the Suez Canal virtually shut down, many pictures of Maersk shipping containers, ships, on the news. This is in Commerce, California, helps them move their containers around. It was pretty interesting because it's got 2 different generations of battery electric trucks from the same company. There's some first generation Volvo VNRs that have a 120-mile range with 4 battery packs. The newer Gen 2 trucks have a 225-mile range with 6 battery packs. But it comes with some issues because if you look behind the cab, let me see if I got right there, that's the difference between the 2 of them. They've added this huge battery system behind the cab, and now it affects the length of the vehicle and the maneuverability, the weight of the vehicle. But the good news is they get nearly 100 miles more per vehicle charge out of it. So some of the trade-offs going on, they've got several different chargers. They're using a Synop charge management system. I think you're going to hear me say a couple times. I'm going to make sure I say it right here, right now. Going into this, a lot of us and a lot of others have thought there was a one-to-one relationship of chargers and trucks. That's not necessarily the case. They're finding ways to use less chargers, less infrastructure, less infrastructure costs coming into their property by finding ways to move trucks through chargers faster. Fresno, California is OK Produce. I think this is a 3rd or 4th generation of this family that has owned the produce business. The son or grandson left the business, did other things, is super ecologically minded, said, I'll come back if you let me help change this company and make it much greener. So he is very aggressive about what they're doing. They have 17 Freightliner e-Cascadias shown there on the left with DC 180 kilowatt chargers. These vehicles on the bottom are terminal tractors. Most of you will probably never see one of these unless you happen to actually go on the lot for a distribution center or a warehouse. Those are the best vehicles for the trucking industry to electrify right now. If you go out and buy a new one with a diesel engine on it, it has an after-treatment system in the exhaust system to catch the particulate matter and whatnot. And it's got a way to regenerate and burn that off. These trucks never get the engine hot. They're going 15 miles an hour on a parking lot that's no more than probably a half mile long. So the after-treatment system doesn't work very well. Battery electric works tremendously well. And if you have range anxiety, how much range anxiety can you have if the truck's never more than a half mile away? A lot of companies are figuring out, you know what? I know where to put the charging system. Where's the break room? Where's the lunchroom? If you put it right there, every time that the driver goes to use the break room, the bathroom, get lunch, opportunity charging. So a really cool operation. Orange EV was the first company that has those. Theirs are now, first ones are 6-7 years old. So some of this has been around a little while and they're working quite well. Here they've got a BP pulse charge management system and they're working with Pacific Gas and Electric. They also have 4 megawatts of solar already on site, 150 kilowatt hours of battery storage, and they're increasing. Every year, every month, they're working on raising that number up. But simply took our publicity of this demonstration through the ceiling. There's only one company in the whole world right now that has Tesla semis. It's PepsiCo. 21 of the 33, I think it is, are in Sacramento delivering beverages. The others are at Modesto, California, delivering potato chips. A whole lot of people were on social media crapping all over our postings. It's just potato chips. Well, don't look at that. Well, no, folks. If it says Frito-Lay or Lay's on the side of the trailer, that's potato chips. These are beverages. What's even more interesting about it The city beverages one that do less than 75 miles a day are typically delivering to big box stores, the Walmarts and others of the world. The long haul beverage trucks that are doing 250 to 450 miles a day. I got to be out at Sacramento 2 years ago when we did our regional demonstration. I learned something about Pepsi. You've all had Pepsi in a can, you've all had Pepsi in a bottle. A lot of plants are either canning or bottling, they're not both. They also have facilities that package fluids at room temperature and others that do it at elevated temperatures, not necessary. So they have lots of different kinds of plants doing different kinds of things. These trucks shuttle these beverages between facilities. So for instance, this truck might start out in the morning completely filled with Gatorade, make its first stop, take a third or a fourth of the Gatorade off, pick up Pepsi. Go to the next place, take another third or fourth of the Gatorade off, pick up iced tea. So these trucks run heavy all the time. I had my rear end removed as a product line manager because I made armrests standard on our trucks, like the one you see sitting out there, and Pepsi was furious. I didn't have permission to add 4 pounds to their truck. So they are hyperweight sensitive because they haul fluids. Look at that number down there, 4 Tesla 750 kilowatt chargers. Yeah, I saw some wows going across the lips in the room. We're working our way to those megawatt chargers. This is the biggest I know of at the moment. But they're supported by a municipal, Sacramento SMUD. Really exciting situation, really excited that we got to monitor them. Elon doesn't do sales and marketing. If he wants to tweet something out, the world will know about it. We were pretty excited that Pepsi encouraged Elon to come along for this journey because Pepsi serves on our board of directors along with some other fleets.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you get an opportunity to talk to Tesla about their use of semis batteries? So they're hauling batteries to and from facilities.
They've got their own route.
Yeah, max weight. And they're basically moving them from Reno up to Fremont.
Over some significant terrain.
Yep.
Yeah. I wasn't at the filming here. Tesla refused to go on camera, but they absolutely mandated they be right behind the camera, and no, you can't say that.
Yeah.
So yes, our executive director does know what they weigh. No, we're not allowed to say. He does know other things. No, we're not allowed to say. So we're just excited we got to monitor these trucks and excited that we've got to share with you the data from these trucks.
I think they did actually release that during their Monroe interview. When Sandy Monroe interviewed them 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's one that I absolutely have to share in a utility industry setting. US Foods delivers foods to amusement parks, hotels, restaurants, whatnot. They started their electrification journey by buying 30 Freightliner E-Cascadias. These trucks are $300,000 a piece, so 30 of them is a $9 million investment. They ran into problems getting their infrastructure, so they were about to have $9 million in stranded assets. That doesn't work. So any utility that is busy telling me about stranded assets, I'm going to turn around and hold the mirror up. Trucking world's concerned about stranded assets too. They don't like that. The permitting delays and other things forced the US Foods team to scramble. They figured out that the backside of their garage that they used to service all their trucks had enough power that they could add what to me looked like marine connectors off the back wall and run cords over the blacktop, you can see there, they couldn't call them temporary. Their executive management was going to die if they heard the word temporary for this investment, so they called them portable. Their plan now is to move those from facility to facility as they work on their electrification journey to get going more rapidly with other facilities. But those are honestly skids for a forklift truck. So a little unusual, but we were in a situation of stranded assets. What I can share with you that I couldn't get on film when we were there doing this, Disneyland is right next door. They service Disneyland. I can't begin to tell you how excited Disneyland was to have trucks that said 0 emissions and didn't make any noise on their facility in front of their customer base. They were darned happy. Don't bring those diesels back if you don't have to. Even better, all the hotels right around Disneyland that they service as well, once they found out what was going on, absolutely loved them. Do not bring diesel engines back. I can say I have woken up to diesel engines at a hotel before when they're making early morning deliveries. I'm the unusual one because I will jump out of my room, go out and photograph the truck because it's what I do for a living. I love a good truck photo. Most people don't want to be waking up. If you get a battery electric truck, you won't know it was ever there. So that's what's going on with US Foods. It's a real challenge. They found ways to get into it. Last one, just to share with you. Schneider happens to be on our board of directors, and Rob Reich of Schneider is their, I believe, their chief asset officer. He talked his company into participating. They've got a facility at South El Monte, California that they're converting instantly to all battery electric trucks. In September when we did this, they had 82 Class 8 E-Cascadia Freightliners sitting there. I think they're close to 100 now. They have 16 dual cable 350 kilowatt chargers. In the trucking industry, we call it slip seating, which means one driver slips in, out, another driver slips in. These trucks are going all day long, in and out. If your truck's low on charge, you bring it in, you grab another one and go. We'll charge that one up for the next person. So they're typically, a driver is assigned a truck. In this case, they're not assigned a truck because they're moving from one truck to another. It takes more battery electric trucks than it did diesel trucks because of this situation. But what I have to stress to you, there's a 5 megawatt feed coming in from Southern Cal Edison. We monitored enough trucks. We estimate that those 82 trucks, from what we saw, were maxing out somewhere in the neighborhood of 44 megawatt hours per day charging, and no, it wasn't between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. So that load curve is pretty big and pretty ugly, or pretty exciting depending on how the particular utility company feels about it. But that's what the future looks like in the trucking industry.
How did that compare to the TCE for the diesel fleet? I assume it was similar size, slightly smaller.
I don't remember the exact numbers. I think there were somewhere in the neighborhood of just under 80 diesel trucks that they were replacing.
What's their feedback on TCE now that they have?
TCE?
Total cost of ownership.
TCO.
Sorry, TCO.
For those of you that aren't familiar, TCO, total cost of ownership, absolutely drives the truck industry. We don't buy based on our emotions. We don't drive by a lot and go, ooh, that's a pretty cool truck. I think I want to own one of those. Consider them the rolling asset that's part of the production line. Our challenge is we can't do a TCO calculation because no one, and I do mean virtually no one, knows what the resale value of that truck or battery is right now. We can compare, to your question, we can compare operating costs. So we're pretty sure that the fueling, combined with the reduction in maintenance, you're going to be much better off in operating cost.
I know Hertz was saying there was some 50% reduction in service.
Trucks, it's even a bigger deal because regen braking, for those of you that aren't real truck familiar, if you've ever heard trucks at an exit ramp going as they're slowing down, I got a few head shakes. They're turning the diesel engine into an air compressor and using that to slow the truck down. The really cool part with battery electric trucks, you're using regenerative braking, and now all those places where you see no Jake brake operation because people don't want to hear that noise, we can use regenerative braking. But it also creates some new headaches, but only to a particular few in the industry. A wholly new paradigm for the truck industry for decades. Fuel the thing all the way up in the morning, go do your run. If you're running out of Reno, Salt Lake City, Park City, Denver, and your route in the morning is, or beginning of your shift is downhill, the last thing you want to do is have it all the way fueled up. You want to use that regenerative braking to fill the tank, so now we need to know, where's that truck going next? So we fill it up properly. So it's a whole new paradigm we need to be a whole lot smarter in how we deploy trucks once we go battery electric, if you happen to be in one of those areas.
any of these fleets are you seeing substantial improvement in brake replacement cycles?
Yeah, there's some of them that, given, again, we don't know what the ownership model is going to look like. For companies like Schneider, I would tell you they are probably on a 3 to 5 year trade cycle for each and every truck. They'll buy an extended warranty that covers the truck for like 600,000 miles to cover that time period. They want to sell it with 50,000, 100,000 miles left so the second owner is comfortable that there's nothing wrong with this truck, and if there is, I'm covered. So that's their model. We don't know what the model wants to look like with a battery electric truck. Talking with the people we talk to, and this is just information I hear across the desk, a lot of people are talking about electric vehicles. Well, how far does it go from 100% down to 0% state of charge? What's its total range, whatnot? One of the major players we were talking to says they've talked to enough different manufacturers. They've been told if they can keep the truck between 80 and 20% state of charge, you might be able to double the life of the truck. If you can keep it between 80 and 40, you might be able to quadruple the life of the battery. Those are huge, huge changes in total cost of ownership.
Chinese already see that.
What's that?
Chinese already see that now.
Okay.
They're talking to Schaller in China. That's it. Those numbers are pretty good.
But I have to tell you the other side of the world here too. Truck industry takes dealerships to support these trucks. They're absolutely crucial to keep them going. Right now they're crucial because most of the fleets can't service the electronic and the battery system on them, so they need the dealership support. Dealerships make next to zero money on the initial sale of the truck. It's really small. They make all their money on parts and service. If these trucks are 20 to 40% less maintenance, the financial dealership model is in severe jeopardy. So it's a real interesting conundrum we're in right now. I've been in the industry for nearly 40 years. There were no new OEMs the first 35 years of my career. We've doubled the number of truck manufacturers in the last 5 years, and most of them don't have dealerships. So I can't tell you how the future is going to play out. All I know is that there's more change going on in trucking than there's ever been before.
One last question. In terms of, most of these fleets don't like having their trucks offline. So, I mean, when you're talking about the battery charging time, obviously that's a certain amount of revenue associated with that. Are they sensitive to that, or are they seeing some of those benefits?
There are so many different operational models.
Yeah.
Some will be very sensitive and some won't. Some are sensitive to weight, some aren't. It's every different operational mode you can think of is out there somewhere in the truck industry. So I can't give you a real good answer to that yet. What I want to share here with you real quickly, and I know I'm over time, but I've got a lot of questions and interest. If you go to runonless.com and go to Matrix, you can select any one of the 10 fleets. You can select any of the trucks we monitored. You can then pick out the day of the 18 days you want to look at, and it will self-populate with all the information for that truck for that day. So you get to know exactly what the temperature was, how much of the energy was from charging, how much was from regen braking, how fast the truck went. I'll give you a couple examples real quick. Penske, day 2 on their E-Transit, 184 miles in a single shift. They did 54 deliveries. They charged in the middle of the day. Apparently they came back, did lunch. Here's the state of charge. You can see lunch, it went back up. So you can look at this and see how they operated the truck, whether they charged it during the day. You've got state of charge by distance, state of charge with speed. You've got truck activity. Was it moving? Was it stopped? You've got distance by speed. This truck, 41% of its miles were under 50 miles per hour. Not too surprising. They're making city deliveries. A huge proportion of the energy was from regenerative braking. I don't know what percentage that is, but I would easily say that's a third of the energy for the day came from regen braking. Here's the one that made the news. If you go to Pepsi truck number 3 on day 17, Pepsi decided, we want to show the world. They charged their truck up fully the night before, ran it as hard as they possibly could. You can see it got stopped and charged 3 times during the day. They threw down over 1,000 miles in a single 24-hour period. They're stretching it a little bit because if you notice it started at 100%, it finished at 20%. Not quite a fair but you get to see all the data. It's sitting there, so you can see this. So for all those people that thought you could only get 200, 250 miles out of a Class 8 truck in a day, they decided to break that paradigm. It made 5 deliveries, 3 charging sessions. It had some regenerative braking, but spent most of its day above 50 miles per hour. There's a 55-mile-an-hour limit in California, so it was right there between 50, 55 most of the day, and you're not going to get any regen braking when you're cruising down the interstate. Really cool information. Where we, as a nonprofit, are at. Yes, sir. We know that. We talked about it. They agreed to let me run a little bit long. I'm going to go fast here. I'm almost done. Our next step, we're doing a data analysis with some OEMs, with some university professors and others that have been. You can go out and download all that information off our website, have an Excel spreadsheet of all that power. We're sending out additional questions to fleets and utilities that we and others have. We're going to be writing reports, and we will be doing increased presentations and workshop all over the place, especially I'm going to be up in Canada at least 4 times this year, sharing this with them. Our boot camp is also at runonless.com. 10 different sessions all about working on your infrastructure, working with utility companies, etc. This is not us talking, these are industry experts. They're available to you anytime you want any of them. Go pick what you want to watch. Finishing up, as we look back on this, we interviewed 121 people that were representing over 5,000 EV trucks. We think there's a 5.2 electrifiable trucks that could save 100 million megatons of CO2. There's just a lot of opportunity here. Here's the depots that we had. We had 294 EVs that were already at these depots, 139 chargers, over 1,000 megawatt hours of power used. Just a lot of different excitement here. Nearly 500,000 miles traveled in these trucks. So a lot of interesting stuff, 8 different charger companies, 5 different utilities. Our big problem is it's taking too long to get infrastructure. We aren't going to make the deadlines and targets we're shooting for unless we can figure out a way to do infrastructure better and faster than we're doing it today. So most of the 10 depots took at least 9 to 36 months, and some still weren't done when we did this. So it takes quite a while to get this stuff in place. Why is this a big deal? I've been in the industry. We're very familiar with OEMs, dealerships, fleets, bodybuilders, key suppliers, somewhat of a relationship with landlords. We have no familiarity working with charge management system, EVSE, authorities having jurisdiction, design and construction, utility rate structures, utility regulatory. Those aren't things we deal with. This is a whole new wild world of the trucking industry that we're trying to figure out. We need help. We need utilities to start coming to truck shows. It's starting to happen, and we need truck companies starting to come to utility shows. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. I'll do my questions at the end, if you don't mind, to give my 2 co-speakers a chance to get up here. Is that fair? Okay. Oh, yours is. If you want to introduce yourself, I'll pull up your presentation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so thanks, Dave. I always look forward to seeing the Run on Less each year. It's pretty relevant to our work at the Council of Governments, so I'll give you all some more details on that in a second. But I'll hopefully shed a little more light on that utility piece that Dave was speaking about. I'm Jared Wright. I'm a senior air quality planner at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. And we do a lot of work on the infrastructure side for alternative fuel vehicles, as well as the vehicle side that Dave was speaking about.
That move forward.